us. Welcome. Welcoming.
Thank you. I know. Eventually.
Divine timing. So how are you? In Belfast?
I'm brilliant. I am absolutely fantastic. I am just flowing. I just have really been enjoying this time, because for years I've been saying, I really wish I had time to do this and this and this, and focus on learning, these things about Instagram, and even getting like a Facebook business page up. I did that a couple of days ago, and now I'm like, so what do I do with this? So I started writing a blog. No, not a blog. What are they called? A post the other night about frequency and vibration. And before I knew it, it turned into a paragraph. And then before I knew it, it was 2 paragraphs. And it's actually turned into an article. And I'm thinking, so what do I do with this now? I can't post this. So now I have to figure out and learn, where can I put this information? But things are really good here. We do have, of course, the fear factor, which I keep forgetting about until I go outside the house, because I'm so disconnected from it. I'm so focused on developing and growth and learning what I can learn during this time, and focusing on my own skills and growing those as well. And I actually forget that other aspect is there, where the vibration is very low, and the vibration is very fearful. And people are so willing to partake of that whole situation, agenda, if you like, the whole COVID-19 thing to me is very multi-layered, very, very multi-layered, a lot of different facets, both negative and positive. But from the higher dimensional aspect, I really feel that this was what we were waiting for. But the likes of me have been waiting at least 15 years for this point. So from where I'm sitting, yes, there's danger, and yes, there is opportunity. We need to be mindful and considerate to others. And we also need to take it as an opportunity to grow into where we're going with it, into our best selves, and utilizing the frequencies that are coming in now and moving forward with that. Those of us who are aware of it, because those of us who are aware of it can harness it and hold it for those who are coming up, who aren't aware of it yet. Because as a healer, I know that at the end of this, I'm going to have a lot of clients coming who are traumatized from what's happened, whose paradigms have been completely shattered, and where they're questioning everything in their lives and what their lives have really been about up until this point, and where they're going to next. As the unveiling happens more and more on the different layers, whether it's political or pharmaceutical or whatever, people are waking up, but they're waking up from where they're at. People were waking up at different levels. So people like myself and mediums and healers and shamanic people from the shamanic field, we've been waiting for this, and now we're stepping in to hopefully assist with it. Won't we go through our own things as well?
It's true, but don't you feel that us going through our own thing is, like, I'm actually really enjoying the going through my own thingness of it, and like you were mentioning, feeling this expansion of time, of space to really just relax and unfold into all of these different parts of myself that have been really wanting my attention. And now it's like, oh, okay, you've lost your jobs. Okay, here you go. Here's this time and space. And so using it constructively. And I feel that when I do apply myself, just like there is more life force, there's more light, there's more, the vision become more expanded. They want me to go in deeper. And I also feel like I'm receiving more. And I love what you're speaking to as well, that it is true, if the conditions that we have created for us maintain a certain clarity, our ability to download, just like, I feel like immense light codes from the galactic shifts right now is just like, you got to let yourself be held by it, though. And I think the fear is definitely going to take us away from that, whereas allowing ourselves to be held and to trust the initiation of consciousness that we've had is such a big one. And now I think I can hear me in the background through your device, but I'm not sure if that sounds weird to you too, Abel, when you talk, if you can. Okay.
I can't hear anything apart from just the normal.
Okay. And I remember talking to you on the phone a while back, and we were talking about the idea of, and you mentioned it here, that people after this there'll be a level of trauma to be healed. And on top of, I feel like already the unhealed traumas that so many of us have been walking with, and then coming into like, and now you're quarantined for most people, now you're isolated back to back with people that maybe you've experienced trauma with. Do you have the right means and channels to work this out? How, is it just being suppressed more? Are you able to work it out? So there's like those layers of trauma. And I know we were saying that there's an aspect where we get to midwife this new level of consciousness in. So how do you feel in your experience? Because we both know, right, and all healers who are chiming in, and really anyone who's just taken a step to heal their life know that when you go there, you're going to be unraveling trauma, your own trauma. And that's a part of the initiation to, being in the light, I feel. How has your experience of you coming into your spiritual path reflected that?
Well, first thing I would say is when this happens, like when you are confronted by any shadow aspect of yourself, particularly for the first time, I think it's very important to have somebody you can reach out to, whether that's a group or a mentor or a teacher, somebody you can go to. You may not actually know what's happening. For a lot of us, we don't. It's on reflection back. When we look back, we actually see what happened there, and we begin to then go into it deeper with a better knowledge of what we're working with. So I really feel that support is having a support structure there is so important. Even if it's just talking to your friends, like saying, I've had these weird dreams. I've been having these weird feelings recently. I'm not too sure what it's about. Has anybody else been experiencing anything? And then that can take on its own momentum. And then from there, somebody might go and Google something and find a piece of information, if you really are starting from scratch. Because if you're starting to work with the shadow side, you don't want to be overwhelmed, but you do want to learn what's happening to you and why this might be happening and how you can work with it in a contained way that's going to benefit you, so you don't become overwhelmed by it. So that's what I would say, is try and get some support. And there is so much online at the moment. There are so many groups that have been formed for this type of work. I mean, you just have to go onto Facebook, for example, and you can find it. I don't know about Instagram. I'm just learning about Facebook at the moment. But and you can find groups, you can join groups, you can ask questions. There are a lot of metaphysical groups, there are a lot of shamanic groups who have good facilitators on there. And the great thing about the technological age is, this is probably the same for you, Tuesday. When I started out on this path 27 years ago, we didn't have this. The internet had just started. There was no Facebook, there was nothing. So you had to physically get up, travel to workshops, travel to weekend classes, week-long, get a plane and go off somewhere and do these trainings and go to the library and get books and sit down. There wasn't what we have now. Some of these teachers that were fantastic at teaching me back in the day, they're online and they're offering so much, either for little or nothing, or at a minimal cost, or they're offering it full price. But it's all there, so the support is there. You just need to reach out. And also, from a vibrationary perspective, when you start reaching out, you will notice that things begin to come to you anyway, because you've just taken the action. Because as you know yourself, once you've set that frequency, once you put that frequency out, everything that's of the similar nature to it will become drawn to it. So you begin to draw it into your life effortlessly.
And that's just it, isn't it? It's making that choice, making that decision to walk that path. And so I'm interested, for those who maybe this might be a new idea to, the aspect of healing trauma, like what does that look like? Like if you had a client coming to you expressing that they, need to work out some stuff and receive a healing or go through a series of healings, and you recognize it as being trauma, like what is there a kind of a blueprint, or is there a few steps that are generally foundation steps that that you would be working and sort of walking someone through? What does that look like? I'm just curious. And what does it look like for you? What does it look like for you?
Well, for me, it's I feel very honored when I'm in that position, because for somebody to come to me and to want to work with me, new person is completely unique and individual. So how I work, I can't speak about what the general consensus is with this. All I can talk about is from my own experience. Somebody might come with a particular issue. Say they come with a kidney problem or back pain or whatever it might be, or it might be an emotional issue. So, so I know immediately the physical manifestation is coming from an unresolved emotional problem or issue that they have. So I will go in and I'll start working. I'll open up the space and I'll start working with them. Now, luckily, I'm able to tune in and see where issues can be. So even if they haven't come with that they've come with like an issue of leg pain. When I'm in there and working, I might be able to see the trauma. Now, if they come with traumatic events that they want to work on, clearly I'll see that also. And what I'm able to do then, from working on them, I always have a pad and a pen with me when I'm working with a client. And as I work on them, different situations will jump out at me. Different messages will come from either my spirit team or their spirit team, their guides, and also what their higher self wants me to know, to reflect back to them. Now, if somebody comes and they're saying, well, I don't believe in any of this is all crap. Yeah. But my wife said, I should give it a go because she came and she really liked it. I'll go, grand, okay. Very receptive. Anyway, so we'll work with it, work with what we have. After the session, when I'm giving feedback, if I say to him, is it okay if I share some very personal stuff that I picked up? Yes, no problem. And if I'm able to reflect to him, okay, I saw this particular situation, which may have come up for you at a very young age, and that will be confirmed. And then when somebody can see that you have actually been there with them in that trauma as it's happening, because it's like a picture, it's like a snapshot, it's like an emotional snapshot, but I'm tuning into that emotional snapshot. So then I have, and because I'm empathic as well, I can feel that and experience that with them. And then when it's reflected back, they then know, this person knows what this is about, which opens up the whole area of trust, which then allows me to give them tools to work with, different people to try, different authors to try. I'll also maybe suggest counselling or psychotherapy in addition to the healing work, because I can support all of the other work that's going on around it. So it's very individual, because then you'll have a client who comes with extreme exhaustion, and this has happened many times, extreme exhaustion, high fatigue, find it very difficult to focus, this, that and the other. And what will be zoned in immediately on is, okay, I'm seeing a B12 deficiency. And I'll say to the client, okay, I really feel that this could be an issue for you. Please go and get it checked out. And each time that's happened, it's actually been confirmed. So, it's so individual. Mm-hmm. It's meeting the person where they're at that particular time. I'm not in the business of bringing anybody back into trauma, because this type of healing work is about, it's usually very non-verbal insofar as you do not have to sit down and talk about this trauma. We can connect. You and I can connect. I can experience your trauma with you, and then I can assist you to maybe work through that. by giving you different tools to use or suggesting different places that you can go to do research, because it's also about empowerment. I'm not going in to do the job for you.
Right.
I'm here to facilitate a situation here. You know, I'm going to facilitate you to do the work yourself.
And isn't it
because I have no right to take that away.
Sure.
No way. You're doing the healing. I'm just facilitating it.
Yeah. No, and it takes, that's the initiation for the individual, is to go through, is to meet their shadow, to go in and move to the other side of it. And it's so interesting what you said earlier about, you see the snapshot, the trauma, and it validates to them like, okay, it's the gig is up. I always feel like the tar body, the shadow aspect, it's like once you see it, or a healer that's working with you is like calls it out, it's like the tar body's like, oh man, the gig is up. They know I'm in here, And then there's like the unraveling. Now, again, there's new people joining, and I just want to say thank you so much. We will scroll through and see if there's any questions, perhaps, or any comments that might be interesting in a little while. And if we get into like hot topic zone, we can come back and do a little bit more, maybe a full hour, or maybe if we're in the middle of something, Aoibhinn, and we need to finish for like a last 20, 15 or something, we can do that, but we'll see where we get. And just to introduce again to anyone who's new hopping on here, thank you so much for being here. I am Tuesday May Thomas. This is my weekly live stream, 4D Trinity, and I'm so very blessed to have a very dear friend of mine for over 30 years, Aoibhinn Murray, here in the house. She's been a healer for over 20 years. She's a Reiki practitioner. She has a background in shamanism, and she is studying. She's like an up-and-coming medium, so we're going to get into all of that, but I want to give a little background if people are just hopping on, that we met back in the day, and we were backing singers with a 10-piece jazz funk band, and that really our initiation to friendship with each other had more to do with smoking cigarettes and drinking pints of Guinness than anything, rock and roll. And I just love that we have that. And isn't it so amazing? Because though I almost feel like back then, over 30 years ago, like we already kind of knew about chakras. We already kind of knew about auras, and it wasn't, or UFOs and just all that stuff. And it wasn't really anything of a big deal. And then I remember you went to England and you started studying, I think, psychotherapy or something like that. And then you like got, and then I was doing my own thing and getting my downloads. And every time in life we weave back in, we'd maybe not see each other for a period, and then we'd come back in and we'd just be like, whoa, and comparing notes and really almost paralleling and having very similar experiences, but in different parts of the world. And so just in light of that you were sharing about how you would work with someone with the trauma, I remember you telling me part of your shamanic initiation, you had so much of your own, and I'll put this in a bubble of light, but I know you said that you had so much of your own trauma come unraveled, and that there was a certain point where you had complete breakdown, and please, these are my words, where you didn't, your identity, everything was just like snap, crackle, pop, gone. And you were so grateful that you were able to, I think, be with your sister, and you literally just wrapped yourself in a blanket for an extended period of time, and you were just cocooning and just like processing and recalibrating. So for anyone who's out there, who has experienced this, who wants to hear more about it, or who hasn't gone there, what is that like? Well, if you want to give us a little brief about your shamanic initiation, and then how it led to that.
Okay. Yes. That was quite an interesting turning point. So I had been training with an Irish shaman called Martin Duffy, and he is in County Meath, and this is probably going back about 15 years ago. And I was training with my sister. Actually, we were both. My sister's a healer too, but she teaches a lot of this area. Her main focus is now teaching. And I'd heard of shamanic sickness from, the work I was engaged in with Martin and with the group. And at the end of it, I went through my own shamanic sickness. It didn't present itself as being buried in the desert for 2 nights with bugs walking all over me and all that business. How it happened to me was, in the space of about a week, I lost my home, my relationship, my partner who I was living with ran away. I've never seen him since. Just up and left everything there. I was like, God, was I that bad to live with? I lost my health, my home, my relationship, my money, my job, everything, because I was so messed up with my back as well. Because I had an accident. I fell down a flight of stairs during all this and knocked out my back. And so what I was very, very, very blessed and lucky to have my sister, Alison, and teachers around me who knew what was happening. Because to me, at the same time, what happened was I was beginning to see things coming out of walls. The deceased was starting to come and talk to me in the middle of the night. My bed was shaking. It was frightening. It was just like, I'm not in a good way Tuesday, do you know?
We're laughing, but no, I know, I get it.
But it was really frightening. It's kind of like all the things that you had been training for over these years and reading about in books were actually happening. And it wasn't like they said in the book, you know. It really wasn't. You felt like a fruitcake, you felt like a nutter, and you felt, is anybody else seeing this fella walking out of the wall here? Do you know? Yeah. So that was actually really traumatic and very frightening. And I had Martin there who was able, because he was a psychotherapist as well, like he came from psychological background. And he was able to coach me through it. And he told me about a book by Stanislav and Christina Grof, who are two psychotherapists. And the book was called Stormy Search for the Self.
Wow.
And this book was absolutely a godsend to me. It was just fantastic. And it allowed me to be normal in my weirdness for the first time. So basically, I had all these senses growing up, but because I was in a society that doesn't acknowledge these, doesn't encourage it, particularly when I was growing up in Holy Catholic Ireland, I didn't know what to do with it. So I kind of just dumbed it all down because I kept getting into trouble, for one thing. I'd say, so an adult would say something to another adult and I'd go, but you don't really feel that. You didn't believe that, you know, because I'd be tuning in. I mean, shut up. Okay. So I ended up then kind of on my sister's sofa in her house. I stayed with her. She kindly brought me in and looked after me and made sure I was eating enough food and really, really supported me. And I had a spiritual director up in the Dublin Mountains who my friend Jude brought me up to see as well. And between Jude and Alison and Martin and Dermot, this other spiritual director, I had the support system around me to allow me to just be in this with some guidance, with my book. And what I found was that often when somebody is doing training, particularly the level of training that I was doing at the time and the level of experiences that I was having, I was journeying to all sorts of different realms, both light and dark. And then you're back in 3D life with those experiences. And I found out and I learned that you can go into spiritual emergence. People can spiritually emerge. But what happened to me and what this book was about was spiritual emergency. So basically, I had done so much and all of my abilities, if you like. I'm always looking for a good word for that to use instead of that. Everything basically came flooding forward all at once. And 3D, Aoibhinn, really didn't know how to cope with it. So it was my friend Jude, who I speak to often but has passed a couple of years ago. She really, really helped me in drawing the veil and learning, you know, even if somebody wants to talk to you or connect with you from spirit, you don't have to actually open up to them. Because, you know, we often think that just because we can, we should. Right. But no, when I'm working with somebody in spirit, I'm the person, this is my realm, you know, so, you know, and I'm sovereign. So we need to work together and I'll give boundaries for that work to take place if they want to come in.
Amen.
You know? But that I had to learn the hard way that I don't have to be at their beck and call 24/7. you know. So, and then from there, so that healing took about 6 months, and the integration of all of the new stuff, if you like, took about 6 months. And then I was at the infancy of the next part of my life. So I was back down, baby level again, but in this other new area with all these new kind of sensations and senses. So it was very beneficial, very, very tough, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, and it seems like that is what is, I saw Self-Centered Canada had put a comment there a few moments ago saying that, like, wow, it sounds so similar, you know, to stuff I've been through. And I feel like we do have these parallels, and that this is the initiation, though, to light, to that awakening. And it's the breaking through and the breaking down of all the paradigms and the cellular memory of the way that we've been taught that the world is and who we are supposed to be in it. And it's like, once that cracks open, yeah, you have a nervous breakdown. The synaptical connections of how you've been taught to and conditioned to be who you are in the world and to expect the world to be a certain way, that just goes away. And then, so like you're saying, ground zero, there's nothing, wrap me in a blanket. What's going on, you know, like just to get grounded, to learn how to be in a body here again. But now, as you were saying, even though this was so long ago, with those expanded then level of your sensitivity and learning how to really hone them and honor the sacred quality of that. And so I'm so curious, did the Reiki come into your life after that shamanic experience, or was the Reiki already with you before that?
I'm trying to think. I think the Reiki was already with me. I think the first type of healing I got into was vortex healing, and then the second was Reiki, and then the third was the shamanic work. Yeah.
Wow. So you were already attuned going in, you know, and I do feel that the universe will prepare us. I always feel like we're never going to be met with anything that we're not ready to experience. And by way of grace, the divine will set up for us along our path, you know, experiences that will help our circuitry to be in the presence of a higher voltage, if you will, and so that we can get that transmission and receive that, and they can be integrated. And I guess, and just reflection, my perspective is like, wow, thinking that if you were already attuned with Reiki, how that created such a good, such a great and strong foundation for you to get this big lightning bolt of enlightenment, of Kundalini activation. That's my words, of course, for your shamanic breakdown, breakthrough. And, you know, just to create the correct conditions to be able to go through that without really going nuts, you know, I mean, because there's been times we can very easily go nuts because we do lose our minds, and it's a good thing. It can seem totally scary because the mind, it seems, is running the show until we learn how to, you know, come into the heart and let that frequency really open and guide. But it's a very powerful thing. And so I'm so curious then, as you integrated this, your new awakening sensitivities and the shamanic now awareness of dark and light, and integrating everything that you were healing in, already walking with Reiki, already knowing from a young age that you were seeing people, you were hearing voices. Well, first of all, how young did that start? And how does all this weave into your path of mediumship, which I know for you now is like really starting to expand?
Yeah. My first recollection of anything non-worldly, I think, was in Mass, you know, going to Sunday Mass with my sister. When I was really, really young, I don't even know what age I was. I mean, I must have been under 10. I remember seeing lights around the priest. And I used to think, oh, that's nice, but that's weird. I don't see it. You know, and I remember saying it years later to my sister Alison, and she said, well, have you heard of the aura? And she was, I mean, she's quite a bit older than me, so she was already training in the whole healing areas before I was. You know, she was like the trailblazer, the pioneer, and I kind of followed her in her footsteps. And she said, well, it could be the aura. And I was like, the what now? The aura. And I went, oh yeah, I've heard of the aura. And I had then, as I got older, I got very angry, in my teenage years, because I felt that, I had a lot of issues anyway, from those years and family stuff going on. And, but I also I was constantly being told that what I was feeling wasn't real, and I got really angry. I was kind of born at the wrong time. I should have been born now when it would have been nurtured, But it was always like, oh no, you're exaggerating. Sure, why are you saying that? And you couldn't be feeling that. That's not real. So I just shut up because I wanted to be accepted, just like any of us. We want to be part of the group and accepted into the pack. And that really went inward. And I was really, really angry for a long time. And it took me a lot of years to work through just that part of my life. The trauma that was created because of my self-denial.
Being silenced, like.
Yeah. And not knowing that I could actually say this stuff. And of course, at that time, it was very much, Ireland was still very much dictated by the Catholic Church. So, it's very easy for somebody to turn around and say, oh, you're working with the devil. And I did even have, a very close family member say that out of fear. And he had experienced the benefits of Reiki. And he had very sore legs and I said, do you want me to do a bit of energy work on them, because this was actually my dad. My mother had benefited greatly for headaches, very severe headaches she was having. And I said, do you want me to work? And he was like, I'm not too sure. And my father trained to be a priest for 3 years before he left, So he was very much into Catholicism. But he saw the benefits of it. He was brainwashed, believing that tarot cards, yoga, Reiki, anything that was about self-empowerment and spiritual growth was basically wrong. Not because he believed it himself, but because he was told to believe that. And I know that. Because after he accepted the healing work, he was like, oh, that feels so much better. And we were able then to open up a conversation, and he was able to talk to me about where his fears were with this and why he was fearful, but he couldn't reconcile the whole fact that it worked.
Yeah.
And that I was doing something good to help with, this is all devil worship and all that kind of thing that he was told it was by the church, unfortunately, So anyway, how it got me into mediumship is I was doing healing work, and this is going back now at least 12, 15 years ago, maybe. And I was working full-time as a holistic therapist and healer. And I worked in 3 different clinics in Dublin. So I'd go to one clinic one day, different clinic, and then different clinic. Then I went into companies and I did on-site massage because I'm a massage therapist as well. And I was working with a client. I just heard this name, Betty. And I was like, what's that? And I'm working on her Aunt Betty. And I was like, oh, okay. So afterwards, I just took a risk. And I said, do you have an Aunt Betty? Because I felt an Aunt Betty, somebody called Aunt Betty here. And she was like, no, I don't. No. She contacted me a couple of days later and said she was speaking to her sister. And there was an Aunt Betty who was like way off, away from the family, that they hadn't met, but she was there. So that was the first time it was confirmed. So what I did was, as this kind of happened, it just happened organically Tuesday. When I was working with different people, different sensations would come in. Like I would feel like I knew certain things about somebody who had passed on. And I thought, I need to go and learn about this and learn to be ethical with it, because I that's like really high on discernment, and ethics are very, very high on my list of priorities. So I started exploring it, and I really, really became interested. And then I went to Stansted Hall, which is the Institute of Spiritual and Psychic Studies in London. I went over there to do some training. And this place is amazing. It's like you know Harry Potter, the place that all the kids are in at school. It's a bit like that. It's like it's like a really big old manor house, and they do all different types of psychic training and mediumship training. And from there, I realized the tutor said, you know, he put me into like an intermediate class, and I said, but I'm a beginner. And he said, no, you're going into this class. And I was able to hold my own with the other students in this medium, a lot of them were already professional mediums. And then for a long time after that, I couldn't find anywhere. The whole thing with mediumship is it's like a muscle. You have to practice. And that's what keeps your connection with spirit and enables you to do the work. So I had, there was a circle that I used to go to in London for a year or two while I was over there, because I've gone back and forth to London many times and worked there and lived there. And then I moved to Belfast 7 years ago, I think it was.
Oh, and you've been there that long. That's incredible.
Yeah, I know. Can you believe it, T? Holy moly. So I tried out a few mediumship teachers here, like a couple of circles here, but they weren't for me. But one of them I knew more than the teacher did. I had an experience, and she's actually a very well-known medium, and she's a brilliant medium. But we didn't it wasn't the right place for me as a student, put it that way. And I told her one of my experiences when I had in meditation and what I had seen, and it was so shamanic. And she said, "Don't frighten my students. Don't frighten my students." Oh. I wanted to get some guidance as what I should do with this.
Yeah.
And I said, "But I'm your student too, and this has been my experience. And can you give me some guidance on it?" So anyway, I stopped going there, and then I found. Stop going there, as you do. And then I found my current mentor. His name is Shan Migyo. And he is, I have to say, one of the best teachers I've had across the board in all of the disciplines that I've trained in. He's only young. He's only like 31, 32. He's mad as a bag of cats. I mean, he's full of tattoos and piercings. And he's exactly what's needed in this field at the moment, because he's bringing in a lot of new energy into this work, and it touches other people who are of that kind of age group as well. And it's modernizing. But now, he doesn't come from a shamanic background, but everything I have gone to him with, saying, okay, this particular thing pitched up in my bedroom the other night. It had 3 whirring wheels, and they were black, and they were spinning like this. What was it? You created an L vortex for yourself there, Aoibhinn, or you've created another portal. You've got to be careful with your energy. He knows, because you know yourself, Tuesday. Any of us who are in this, a lot of us who are in this field, we inadvertently can create portals around us. So we need to be quite careful of our energy. So he can go with me on any journey that I'm going on and reflect back to me some really, really good information, even though he hasn't had that particular experience. So he's also a brilliant medium. He's just a really good teacher. His name is Sean McGraw. I would recommend him to anybody if you're looking to get into tarot or mediumship or anything in this area that he's teaching. He's one of the best, I have to say.
Yeah. And I feel this aspect of that when there is a sincere showing up and a disciplined intention to be of service, for the higher good, and when you keep the energy vehicle, the light body, calibrated in love and in light, and when that intention is there, and when you are guided to take on students, as he has, and I haven't met him, but just I know you've spoken about him and your experiences, which I want to ask you a little bit more on here shortly. But like you're saying, even though he doesn't have like a background in shamanism or whatever, there is a certain point you get to. And when you continue to show up as a sincere student, where it's all the same language, or it's all different words or different things, but it's saying the same thing. And you get like a spiritual translator where you can, especially when you're guided to facilitate and hold space and sort of mentor, as your teacher's doing with you, that you can have those conversations and get direct downloads and hold space then for your students and for those who are also showing up sincerely, so that there can be the way of navigating all of that. And now, just before we go on, because it's 11:56, I want to scroll through these comments and just see if there's anything for you or for us. And then also, would you be interested in hopping back on, like in a couple minutes? This is going to tick down. And then would you, Aoibhinn, be interested in coming back on for a little bit more of a conversation? Or,
Yeah, that'd be great.
Or do you feel fulfilled and like we're good? Or
No, that would be lovely. I can't believe it's already that time.
I know, but you know what? I think it took us a minute to get you on and stuff. So, so we're a little under an hour as far as spending time with you. Okay, so let's see. I just want to see any of the. Okay, Wendy, be free. Everyone's like, yes. Okay. Okay. Hey, Will. Hi, Vajra Queen. Okay. So it seems like there's a lot of love here. 4D Fighting Arts is saying that's true. Awareness of the nemesis is the first step of vanquishing it. Yeah, it's so interesting. Oh, hey, Holly. Like when you know, it's one thing, we're unconscious. And then we come into that conscious awareness of our shadow aspects. You know, we might go for years and just our whole lifetime and not even know that we've been hitting ourselves on the head with the hammer, you know, or that we've given the shadow the hammer to just hit us on behalf of us with. But when you start activating that and realizing, you know, actually what's happening and how those energies work in our lives and how we're actually giving them the right of way, then you can start appropriately making the right moves. And so, yeah, Self-Centered Canada was saying that that's very similar to her beginnings, Aoibhinn, what you were sharing on. And then she said, fuck yes, the rebirth takes time. 4D Fighting Arts said, breaking through the lie, capital L.I.E, limited thoughts and entertained. Woo, by Jim Quick. Okay, nice. So we've got 2 minutes left here. Self-Centered Canada says, I think this happens to so many people. And I believe she had written this comment when you were describing your shamanic experience. And then she says, and then it becomes why we aren't naturally on the spiritual path, our feelings and realities being denied, you know, as if you're lying to yourself. Okay, and then Will is saying here to come back after Insta closes. Yeah, we'll definitely come back for another one, but we have about another minute and 20 seconds. So it is so interesting that you were talking about. Oh, you know what I want to do? Actually, before we wrap up this one, just in case people drop off and they can't come back for part 2, I just want to say, please support Aoibhinn. Her link is Aoiv, A-V, as in victory, Murray, M as in mother, U-R-R-A-Y, at Instagram. Okay, so, or she's at Aoiv Murray on Instagram. And Deep Connections is your business page at Facebook, right?
Yeah, it is. Deep Connections.
Check you out there. And I know you're just beginning here on Instagram, so show her your love, show her your support, and you'll be up and doing some posts and telling us, you know, the blips of this 5-page article, this post that became a blog that became like a whole magazine. You'll be telling us.
I know.
And so you have about 20 seconds. Is there anything just to end part 1 that you would say, and then we'll end and come back here shortly?
Well, I have to say, it's only when you start talking about yourself that you realise, gosh, you've actually had quite a few experiences. But also, in addition to that, I am really, really pleased to hear the comments.
Okay, so it's checking the connection. Connecting. Here we are. Okay, awesome. Round 2. You were just saying that you were so happy that there's so many people resonating.
I'm just really really pleased and happy that there are other people who can relate to this, that it's been their experience as well. It's just so nice. This comes back full circle to what we were saying at the beginning of the conversation about, you know, sharing with other people, you know, because we're each other's teachers and students all the time in this field. So it's lovely to hear other people saying, oh yeah, that was my experience as well, and oh yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. And you know, it's very affirming, you know.
Absolutely I know. And again, it's like unless we, like you were saying at the very, very beginning of part one, you know, unless we turn to those that we know we can and share what we're going through, especially when these things are like really new and we're entering new gateways and stuff, you know, unless we do that, then we're not going to know that there is a community, that there is a conversation, there are tools, there are ways that you can, even just listening to yourself say it or being heard, being seen, like that is such powerful medicine in of its own. And so absolutely just having that sacred space, and it is beautiful. So thank you everyone if you're hopping back in with us. Are so very grateful. And so what I wanted to ask you, Aoibhinn, I wanted to say teach learning. Yes, teaching is learning, right? And learning is teaching. And I think that the more we come into our own aspects of self-mastery, we just, for me, there's never ending invitation to more and more humbling experiences. Really.
Very nice way of putting it, T.
You know, you can feel like you're on a blaze of glory, and you do. You know, you can, but I feel that it's that the blaze burns even brighter when you get out of the way. For me, you know, and then it can show you where to go. But it speaks to what Will has just put in the comments. There is like that. You know, always remembering that as teachers and as facilitators, we're like the never-ending student as well, you know?
Yeah.
And so I want to double back, though, and, you know, because you were talking about how we create portals. And if you can go into that and tell us, like, what your take is on that. Like, how do we create portals?
Well, I don't know. I haven't mastered it. I just know it happens around me.
Well, if you just intuitively now, like, what is your sense of how you would conjure that?
Well, I know that until I was told that I was actually doing it, I thought it was happening to me. I didn't know that that's what it was. I thought I was having visitors at night. Now, my rule is no visitors at night, because spirit visitors, because I have had a lifetime before I learned to actually say no, of all sorts of people and all sorts of energies and entities coming at night. And it's very, very, very disturbing because of the way I see things. It's like me looking right at you, T, you know? It's not in a subjective way. It's literally like somebody's sticking up a photograph of themselves right in front of me every time I close my eyes. And I managed to move away from this a little bit a few months ago because I was so exhausted. And it was actually talking to Shan about it. I said, you know, I woke up the other night and I really thought I had set this boundary. And okay, I have made it a rule when I'm working with spirit that I will see you subjectively. In mediumship, you have subjective viewing and you have objective viewing. So if I'm seeing a person objectively, it means I'm seeing their physical apparition in the room in front of me. If I'm seeing them subjectively, I'm seeing them through my third eye, in my mind's eye, we call it. So I can describe the person and you can sit there and go, yeah, that's my grandmother. But I'm not literally seeing her standing in front of you in a kind of a 3D way. And because I've had that happen, and it can be very, very, very shocking, particularly if it happens at really inappropriate times when you're in the bathroom or something. And it is a shock, something invading your space and just plonking itself in front of you and saying, yeah, I'm here. So I really had an issue with that. Anyway, I had spoken about it, and what happened was I woke up and I did see something in the objective sense, in an objective way. So it was physically in the room. And my husband's going to see this, and he freaks out when I tell him this kind of stuff. So I didn't tell him this. I'm sorry, Ahmed. I turned to the right. That's probably why he was saying to me afterwards, Aoibhinn, you need to do a cleansing of the house. You really need to do. I don't know why, but I've been having weird dreams. But I looked at. This is the reason why, sweetheart. I looked to the right of the bed, and I actually saw 3 vortexes just spinning. And they were dark, and there was one circle and there was another circle inside the first one, and then the second one was here, and then the third one was here. And they were just spinning and making that noise. Well, I got such a shock. I actually jumped out of the bed and I said, look, enough is enough. I don't condone this. I don't accept this. So I went and I spoke to Sean about it, and I said, look, this has happened, and I really thought I had a hold on these. And he's saying, well, Aoibhinn, that's an now vortex in your house. That's now a porthole that you've got going on in the house there. You know, there's probably quite a few. So, so I was able to close that and keep the area safe. And I'm not sure what can come in through it, but I really don't want to know unless I have studied it and mastered it to some degree, because I don't like things coming in. I've had so many things come in and out uninvited, and you know, I don't allow that now.
Right. Because
I'm sovereign. This is my realm, and this is my work. And if you want to work with me, do it respectfully. Yes. But don't just land it. Closed up that portal. I haven't had a portal.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm just so curious, and I'm sure other people are who are tuned in. How did you close the portal, or is that something you can share with us?
Yeah, well, that's fine. So visualization. It's so simple. So I just went in. I saw them spinning. And I closed each one of them up, one by one by one. And then I had a circle around them. And I closed that circle up too. And that was it. Locked. Done.
Boom.
That was it.
You know, and sometimes it's that simple. It's just you putting your awareness, your intention there. And of course, you work with the light for the higher good. And you're like, this is my space. I need to create healthy boundaries here. I will do this. And you just, to do it, you can do it. And so I feel like thank you for sharing that, because for so many people that are intuitive, that are sensitive, that are psychic, and like maybe see things or have things around them that they can't explain, or that are afraid to really like look at them, but that you can look at them. But I think that's part one, is like mustering up the courage to face whatever it is. And especially if it's something that you don't want to have in your space at that time or at all, for you to step into it and to say, to do whatever you need to do to close it up, and to call it out, and to draw that line of healthy boundary in the energetic sand as it is in your space. But you do have to face it though, you know, but that it can be as easy as, I mean, that sounds like that's something, and I don't know, did your teacher tell you, or was that just your divine download of like, bloop, bloop, like?
No, that was intuition. That was me. I just knew what to do. Yeah.
Isn't that so powerful? Go ahead.
Whenever I have situations arise where somebody does try, and when I talk about somebody, I'm talking about in spirit, will try and overstep the mark, I feel so confident now, you know. And it's wonderful because we know that fear feeds energy. So what we focus on, we get more of. But if you have something in your home or something that's annoying you, and you keep giving fear to it, it then knows, it gets bigger, even if it doesn't have a consciousness, it doesn't have to be conscious, but we can make these things so big just by having fear and feeling less than and feeling disempowered. And then we are influenced by what we have created. So here again, we're actually coming back to the whole idea of that we're master. Well, maybe we're not master manifestors, but we're manifestors, but we need to master it, you know? And the first thing is to learn how powerful we actually are, because we've been so disempowered from the time that we incarnated through how many, whatever lives we've had on this planet, because the system has been to keep us as disempowered as possible, you know? And as we're moving and stepping into a higher frequency now, we're learning how to embody our own power and to hold boundaries, set boundaries and hold them, and not to feed things that do not serve us and are not right for us. You know, we're not playing the victim anymore. I'm certainly no victim. You know, I've taken my experience, my crappy experiences in life, turned them around, and they empower me. That's how I've learned. Yeah, you know,
and that's self-mastery in my book, and it never ends, you know. But I feel that you get to a certain point of, you know, whether you use the word battle or, you know, facing those shadow aspects, but eventually you break through enough of it that then you can coast. And as you integrate consciously being and embodying that frequency of your higher self, you don't have to battle as much. It's like you can actually start to relax and enjoy and have a different experience of this earth, and have a different relationship then with spirit and with these entities and with these energies, which is, it feels like what you're able to do now. And so I want to get back into your mediumship, but just before that, it's interesting because you were saying you weren't sure how those vortexes were created in your home, but you recognized them, you saw them.
Yeah.
And so for other folks as well who maybe are unaware of like why there's this ghost in the hallway, or why there's this, you know, this thing that keeps popping up, and if it doesn't make them feel comfortable, you know, it's okay that you don't know, and it's okay to it's okay to create your sacred space and tell it to go elsewhere, you know, tell it to go to the light. And often that's all that is required for that shift to happen. And where there's deeper and darker stuff, you know, that's a different conversation perhaps, but at least to know that that is a musculature that you can develop, and by all means, often that's all it takes to shift that energy. So as you began to exercise your musculature of mediumship, like what does it look like? Like for people that maybe this is a new thing, like when you share mediumship, I know you told me recently that you've sat with your mentor, with your teacher, where he does maybe work with a group in a hotel setting, and does he answer questions and sort of, you know, oh, Aunt Betty's in the corner, she has a message for you. And then I know you were saying that he invited you to be a guest. So were you mediumshipping for others?
Yeah.
How does it look when you, like, what is that? Like, if you could just break it down for us.
It's kind of like a show, basically. It's a mediumship demonstration. So he does these. They're public events, and at the moment he's started doing them online now, instead of, obviously the hotel isn't open. So he would hire a room, and he would basically go there and host spirit coming in. So he would connect and say, okay, I've got so and so, so and so, so and so, and this is what he looks like, this is his name, and this was what he passed from, this was his age, this was whatever. And then he might say, and I'm drawn over to this side of the room. And he may even go right to 3 or 4 people and say, it's somebody here. But usually before that even happens, somebody has said, oh, that's me. And the whole idea with mediumship is to validate that there is something else. So from a healer's perspective, this is fantastic, because it's enabling me to add to the whole healing dynamic. Because if somebody knows that their loved one is in spirit, and you can actually say, well, I know he was 56, and I know that he worked as a train driver, and I know he passed from renal failure, and I know he died in 1985, and this, and this. Well, that is your evidence.
Yeah.
That cannot be disputed. If somebody gives you that information, it's like you pretty much nailed it on the head. So then from giving the evidence, then he would move into giving a message from the person in spirit. So he invited me to take part in a couple of his shows doing that. So it was a wonderful experience, nerve-wracking. I'd stand up in front of 100 people and go, okay, I'm seeing this, and this. And luckily it worked well, which is brilliant. But it also, from a therapeutic and healing perspective, it can really escalate the grieving process for people, you know, by months and months and months and months. And you know, if you know that...
I'm sorry, but by escalate, you mean that it can help to quicken the healing process of, like, suppressed grief that they might have with the loved one that's passed? Okay.
Yeah. So it can get a person through the trauma and pain of bereavement so much faster, you know, because they know that this whole idea of death is just nonsensical. It really is. I occasionally I'll make myself use the word died and death, but it's just not true. It's like we shift, we transition, we change form. We do not die. We're here, we're an infinite, we're a point of consciousness in this body in 3D for the time that we're on this earth, you know, but we're infinite. So, you know, we've done a lot of other stuff and we'll continue to do a lot of other things. And there are different aspects of us out doing lots and lots of different things in various different dimensions and realms as well. But that's another story. So that's really it. So you give the evidence and you give the message. And it is lovely when you have, you know, you say something like, oh, were you sitting in the kitchen this afternoon listening to Lionel Richie? Because I keep seeing Lionel Richie and I keep seeing 3 p.m. this afternoon. Oh, yeah, I was doing it. Oh, yeah, your father was saying that he was sitting in the kitchen with you. He was laughing at you. You know?
Oh, my, it's like you really have to trust, right? In any of these intuitive practices.
Yeah.
Like when you're channeling, when you're getting those downloads, and it's especially when you're talking about people and their family members and whatnot, like you got to just trust with all your heart that what's coming through is, you know, is the right thing. And now how do you learn that? Like, how does someone, even if someone is not going to be a medium, but there's so many of us that are sensitive, intuitive, empaths and stuff. So how would you give your advice, or how did you learn and are still learning to navigate, you know, what is the voice to listen to versus what is something that's not congruent, that's not in service to what's going on?
Well, okay, there are various techniques that you use to strengthen your connection with spirit, and things that you have to do that I do on a daily basis. For example, there's a thing called sitting in the power. Now, you need to sit in, well, I sit in the power every day. What it does is it allows you to feel your own soul. And the way that I do this, and that other mediums would do this, is you drop down into your heart, into your solar plexus, into this area, and you begin to expand. You see a small bright light, and you expand it. You use your imagination to expand it and make it larger until it fills up your whole body. Then you move it through the confines of the physical body. You move it out. You're expanding your soul, you're expanding your light out. So you can expand it all around the earth, you can bring it up to the stars, you can put it anywhere. But if you're connecting with spirit, you're expanding it out. Spirit will then connect with you, and then you bring their energy in, you bring their information in. So this is like a battery, it's like a phone. It's like, say you're the phone, and you need to plug in the phone and charge it every day. So in order to be a good, competent medium, you have to charge, because you have to not use all of your own energy when you're connecting to spirit. You know, in order for somebody to be able to stand in front of 100 or 200 people for 2 hours and be the focus of attention and have that person saying, you know, get 25 or 30 links, that's when you connect with the person in spirit and you bring them through. You have to have a bank of energy built up that you can, a reservoir of energy that you can tap into, because you can't, you burn yourself out. You'll actually go through mediumistic burnout if you keep using your own. And you can't bank on other people's energy either, because that's not right. You need to have this reservoir of energy that you have built up that you can tap into and use to do your mediumship work.
So,
and that takes time.
Yeah, and this is just so interesting, because how you're saying you can't piggyback, but we know it happens. And really the most impeccable thing is to show up for your own practice on a daily basis, like you're saying, and power up. And so just because the idea of the light in the chakras and expanding it beyond the body is maybe something that we've heard before, but this idea, just for clarity's sake, and because mediumship to me, while I have the direct conversation with the entities, I've never thought about it as mediumship, and for other people that maybe have a similar experience. So what you're saying, what you do to maintain that impeccability is come into your space of power, get into spirit through your heart, and then start to expand that light. I'm sifting ahead here, beyond the body, and from then you're inviting spirit in, and the spirit is like the telephone line, you're saying, through which the entities, the deceased will come through. Is that what you're saying? And strengthening that blueprint on a daily basis, so that when you go to do your work, that blueprint, that musculature is with you, and those downloads are clear coming through. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it is. And it does become stronger over time. And it is very different than working intuitively and psychically. It's a completely different energy. And that's another thing you have to learn to be able to decipher which is which.
Tell us about that. How do we decipher what is intuitively, psychically coming through from what is a mediumistic, like an entity from beyond coming through? That's so interesting.
Well, from sitting in your own power and knowing what your own energy feels like, you can determine when somebody else has come into it. That's the first thing. Secondly, if I'm going to connect with spirit, when I go, if I'm doing a reading for somebody, I'm expanding out into their aura. I'm seeing everything that's held in their auric field, all of their trauma from the past and all of their potential future timelines as well. And based on what they're doing at the moment, okay, it looks like that's going to be the potential outline, the outcome. But I'm seeing that from what they present to me with their energy. When I'm speaking to spirit, I'm not going out, I'm going up. So how that's different is I connect up instead of out. Now, there are ways of doing that. So you can use visualization. That's often what's used. So first of all, you want to set your space. So we would open with prayer. I would never do any work like this without connecting to my spirit guides, bringing in whatever masters that I'm very comfortable with, and also creating safety around the work I'm doing. So then I can relax into it and not think about any of that stuff and just do the work. So I will connect up, and how I will connect up is I will visualize a laser beam shooting up to spirit. I can also, another technique is you can also pull down the cord of a light bulb, a light, switch on a light. Some mediums will visualize opening a door, but they have done their groundwork first. They have been building their power over months and years, and then they're using their visualization and using their intention. Where it could take me maybe 5 or 10 minutes to get into the power before I start doing this work, it can take a medium who's been doing it for 20 years, like literally 10 seconds, you know, because it's so automatic for them. And again, we're coming back to your own empowerment and the intention that you're using, because people don't realize how outside of the physical world, all of this stuff is there. It's all seen, you know, and we're projecting out all the time, you know. That's why we're always trying to teach people to raise their frequency, raise their vibration, because, you know, you're only drawing more of the same thing to you, and it's then manifesting into the 3D. And a lot of it when you're training is allowing yourself to make the mistakes, because class and circle is where you make your mistakes. If I'm working with a client, I don't want to make mistakes. So therefore, I'm going to be in class for X amount of years, every week, turning up, rain or shine, because spirits they're waiting. The loved ones are waiting for you. So it's a commitment. You have to make a commitment, because if they think you're not going to turn up or you're half-hearted, they're not going to bother.
Really? The spirits aren't going to bother?
They're not going to bother, no. Because if they think that they're going to go over here to somebody else who does the work, does their homework every week that their teacher sets them, does all their practice readings, and is getting stronger and stronger and stronger on a weekly, yearly basis to become a very proficient medium. I'm going to go to that person, except instead of the person who just does it every couple of weeks and does it half, you know, kind of half doing it, half not doing it, you know, see how I feel. That's not a commitment, you know. So yeah, it's a very different discipline, and it is working on a different frequency to the psychic level and the intuitive level. So because there's stuff that's coming in, there's information. Sorry, Tuesday, just to finish this. There's information that's coming in that I have to trust totally, because I don't know that the image of a duck with a hat on it means something to the person who's sitting there. So a huge amount of it, as you said earlier, is trust-based, and this is what's always been drummed into a fledgling medium constantly. It's not your message. It's got nothing to do with you. You're just facilitating it. Allow it in and bring it out, and don't let your ego get involved. Don't let your brain get involved. It's not your information. So when you see, a saber-toothed tiger with a big, crown on its head, that means something to the person sitting there, even though it's like ridiculous to you. So yes, there's a huge learning around trust in it as well.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to kind of go back there, because this idea of differentiating between intuition, what is coming through on a psychic intuitive level versus coming through what did you say, spirit, or through your center of power, or what was that term that you used? Sitting in your power?
Sitting in your power, yeah, when you're sitting with your own soul. Yeah.
And just if you could speak a little bit more on the discernment. How does one discern, what is psychic and intuitive versus what is true mediumship? Like, how does one know if they're getting voices or people talking to them from beyond? How do they know, like, what is the difference? How is something intuitive or psychic versus direct, like, mediumship?
Well, it's actually quite easy if you have somebody sitting there and you're reading them, if you're reading for them and they keep saying, no, and you haven't got their look on. If you're saying, you used to like eating tomato sandwiches, the two of you, here's a shared memory. You used to go to the beach with your Auntie Mabel, often in summer, and she showed me a tomato sandwich. You used to like eating them. No. And then the next thing you say, no. Next thing you say, you're probably not connected up. But okay, so when we're connecting to spirit, our vibration is, okay, you have to be a psychic in order to become a medium, but you don't have to be a medium to become a psychic. So when you're training in mediumship, you go up various steps, and one of the levels that you train in is the psychic level. So you train at that level, so then you learn how to do readings and, a lot of stuff that you might intuitively do anyway, but you get proper training in it. When you connect up to spirit, it is a very, very, very different feeling. And there's more energy, in my experience, needed for that. It's much easier just to look at a person and start reading the energy from them and potential outcomes. When you're connecting up with spirit, for me, it feels like it's like a bubble of energy coming at me. It's denser. It's a heavier, not negative, but it's a more tangible feeling. And also, if somebody is telling me something and I'm passing it on to another person, if they're saying, oh yes, that's absolutely correct, then I know I have got that link. Also, another thing you can tell is the speed that you speak. Because when you're connected up to another person in spirit and they start giving information, you can't get the information out fast enough. It just takes on a life of its own.
True. Oh, you froze there for a second, love. You'll be back.
So I can't do this and blah, blah, blah. And this is the whole thing. And then suddenly she'll go, oh, your grandmother, da, 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 da. And she had this, and she can't get it out fast enough, but she doubts herself. But that'll change in time, But it's, when you're channeling information from another place and from another person, because it is not, you're not pausing. There's no pausing happening. And it's just coming in and out practically at the same time as it's coming in. And you're not thinking about what is being said. Yeah, okay,
so now I'm gaining a clarity around how you're breaking it down. And thank you for that, because I think this is such an interesting premise, to just understand that there are little like energy lines just distinguishing, the variables of this. And And I know from myself that this entity Relivar has been channeling with me, and he's always here with me. But there's some of these 4DT shows on my YouTube, and it's exactly like that. And I'm like, I can't even get a breath in between. And the only way, like you were saying, the pause, the only way that I will pause is if that entity pauses, because it knows that people are like, they need a moment to like, and then like, and then here we go again, and we're like off and running. And I don't remember anything. Like, I have to go back and look at the stuff. And I just started looking back at some of the stuff here from when I was still drinking wine. A lot of people who follow me for a long time, when I was drinking a lot, but I'd still wake up and I'd still channel. It's like the spirit didn't care. It was like, this stuff needs to get out there. And I'm just going up, and I wouldn't remember, and I'm going back and I'm looking at the stuff going like, whoa, I need to get my notebook and like take notes, because it is quite profound. And so I appreciate that distinguishing of that. It will be, it's almost, you know what I'm getting from what you're saying, and just tell me if this vibes with you, Avo, if it's like where your own personal filters of however you might, things might need to come, the information might need to pass through in order for you to regurgitate the message that's not there when spirit's like, is that okay? That
is totally spot on. Tuesday, completely spot on. The filters just go, and you can't stop it, you know. And it also, you feel so high at the same time. I wonder, is that how you feel when you're channeling? Do you feel that kind of your own vibration is extremely high and you're very happy? You know, I feel when it's all coming, when it's flowing, I'm just high as a kite, you know, not on any drugs now, just on the whole experience. It's a very different experience to doing the psychic work. And it does happen with the healing work, and it's happened in readings. Like when I'm doing tarot, I've had information just flow, and I'm like, oh, that didn't come from me. I don't know. And, you know, it's come from the guys. Oh, who's that now?
We're going to have to talk about tarot cards in a second. I just want to mention two things, and then if I would love to dip into a little tarot talk with you. What was it? It was about the spirit and the channeling. I remember when it first started really happening and I was conscious of it on the live, I would be so high, as you say, like yoga high, naturally high as a kite, but the frequency, it was like, woo, after I'd get off the show, my armpits would be just like sweating, and I'd just be like, what did I even talk about? The first thing I'd want to do was go and smoke a sagerette, which is my little tobacco with sage. And that was like I need to come down. I need to get grounded. I'm like, you know, and that was often a thing. And now I don't have to do that in that way. But I was also drinking a lot of alcohol back at that time. But so there were more of those kinds of things connected for me internally. But that was very grounding for me. And that was a way to just like come back in, even though I probably just made that up that I needed that to happen. Now, Sam, what's that?
Yeah, but if you made that up that you need that to happen, then you need that to happen, because that's what you have manifested. You know, that's your that's your belief. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. That's your belief. So therefore you need to do it. Do you know, until that belief shifts.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And then I don't need to do that anymore. And I think it's great. What Sam was saying here in the comments is like, you know, were there any ways that you knew? Do you get ringing in your ears? Is this a language?
Oh, yeah.
Like, did you get, what little things happened to you along your way of like your medium, you know, antennas sprouting?
I think it goes hand in hand with the movement into 4D, 5D. Because yes, the ringing in the ears and tones. I have been plagued by in the ears for years, but it's not tinnitus, and it's inside my. I can hear it, but it's not tinnitus. That's all I can say. Is it's not that. It's and it'll often happen at night. when I'm going to bed, but it'll often happen just randomly during the day as well. And I started wondering, anybody else hearing these tones? You know, I've been hearing these tones for the last few years, and I found out that there are quite a few people who hear the tones. Now, I think that it's a connection with the mediumship, but I also think it's a connection with the other energies that are going on too. So yes, in answer to the question, yes, there would be ringing, and there would be, for me, tones, different, and then as quickly as they start, they would stop as well. People can do this. This mediumship isn't for a special group of enlightened people or anything like that. I mean, we're all here in physical form. We're all in 3D. So, you know, we aren't the most enlightened in the world or in the universe, because we're still here learning, you know, and we work with what we have. But if I can do it, they can do it. Anybody can do it. You will have people who are stronger in it, because they have come in with those kind of, they might have come in with it as a talent or as an ability. But I haven't yet come across anybody who has trained in mediumship and hasn't got to some level of mediumship, whether it's completely spot on, or whether it's just doing it for friends or family members or professionally. Now, obviously, when you want to do it professionally, you really, really, really need to commit yourself to it. It's a lifetime commitment. If you want spirit to work with you, you need to declare that you will work with them, and the information will start to come. The training will start to come.
Yeah.
Is this? Yeah.
You know, it's like so many things in life. You know, you get to turn towards it so that it can come to you. But if you don't, you don't. You know, like there's plenty of conversations I've had with so many others that are awakened and that are continuing, you know, to awaken, and who are invited to have conversation with those on the other side, or to channel, or to automatic write, or to start a podcast, or, you know, all these things to share the information that they're been given. And they almost feel like as long as I don't look over there, it's going to leave me alone, you know, but then they'll meditate and spirit will be like, you're going to start that podcast, you're going to start that blog, you know, and so like, they can't really hide. But I think it's interesting, you know, in hearing those sounds, you know, what I've gotten sometimes is that it's like the inside, that our senses, you know, become quantized. They become like supernatural. And I've almost felt like, isn't it the sound of our electrical, synaptical, the whizzing? You know what I feel like it is? I feel like it's the snap, crackle, pop. If you've ever had the snap, crackle, pops of like the electricity going through our brain synapses, but also this the whiz of the atoms. I feel like I can hear sometimes the spin state of atoms in my body. And so I'm just planting that out there if that resonates for anyone, because that was something, and I might have been doing mushrooms ceremony or an ayahuasca ceremony, because that was deeper than just going to bed and kind of contemplating it. But I remember getting that download and being like, whoa, we're going in like super deep, like to that subatomic level. And supersonic hearing to be able to perceive that. So just offering that. And I remember the first time we got together after like years of not seeing each other, Aoibhinn, when I was in Ireland in 2012, and we were just like reunited, and it felt so good. And of course, having beers, smoking cigarettes and cigarettes, and doing tarot, and talking crystals. And I remember watching you read for me. And it was like the most amazing thing. So first of all, what I want to tell people, and I want to ask you, Aoibhinn, is like, do you do distance readings or medium things or healings or any of that sort of stuff? So if anyone is guided to contact or DM you, that they can set something up with you?
Yes, I have started doing online healings, actually. Yeah. So that's actually really interesting, because all of my clients have always been word of mouth. I've never advertised, but I haven't advertised for years, since I lived in Dublin. So over the past few years, since I moved to Belfast, you know, all the clients have been word of mouth, and this is the first time I actually have to go onto a computer and do something. How do I advertise myself? Oh, sweet divine. But yes, I am seeing clients for healing online. And when I made that decision about 2 weeks ago, I had a friend contact me who is a professional medium who I haven't seen, again, for years. And I knew him when I was in London last in 2012, when I was living there last time. And we reconnected, and I said, look, I'm happy. He's a bit unwell at the moment. So I said, look, I'm happy to meet you tomorrow and do a session for you if you'd like online. And he said, oh yeah, that would be great. So I just did I just tuned into him afterwards for about 20 minutes. And I actually experienced a new type of technology. Now, stay with me on this. When I'm doing healing work, in the past, what's often happened is I will see energy technology coming in and working on the client. So I'm accustomed to allowing that to happen when it has, as and when it has happened. This time, when I was tuning into him, I wasn't even doing healing work on him. He was actually inside this, it looked like a capsule of matrix light. It looks like it was all lines of light. And he was inside it, and it was a healing type of mechanism, like a machine. And I noticed that there was a new guide that I haven't worked with before, and I became aware that he's here to teach me how to use this. So I put my hands through it to see, can I still do my own work? And I was fascinated by how I was seeing the energy move in my own hands. And then I thought, yeah, I can actually. So that was very interesting and very curious. So the next day I met him online and we did the work. Now, bear in mind, he's a medium. So when we came out of the session, he said, God, you did loads of work on my throat. I said, yes, I had my notebook there and I'd written down everything that I picked up during the session to feed back to him. And he said, and who's the fella who was here? He said, is that a guide of yours? And I said, oh, you saw him too. I said, yeah, he's a new guide. He said, he's Arabic. And I went, oh, my husband's Arabic. That's very interesting. So he's a new teacher who's come in. But my friend could actually see what I saw in the throat. There was a lot of threads of light. It was like it was weaving and it was recalibrating something in the throat. Then there were different organs and the bowel and this, that and the other and the kidneys that I was working on. So I'm very curious. It's since I made the decision to start doing this online that I'm online with you. I've never been online. I had a video of me online. I don't even take selfies. I took my first selfie for about 2 weeks ago for Instagram, and I haven't in the past done these posts and things. But as soon as I decided, yes, I'm going to put this online and make it more accessible, the new technology came in that I've started using, and it's really at a different level. It's way up there somewhere. So I'm very, very interested in using it with other new clients as well. When I did the healing on him, he was very impacted by it, and I'm meeting him again to do another healing, hopefully soon. So yes, in answer to your question, I am doing healings online. I haven't started doing mediumship one-to-one professionally yet. I feel I need to be ethical with that. I'm not offering it on a professional basis, but what I'm happy to do is add it on as a little bit of an add-on at the end of tarot card readings. It allows me to begin working with the public on a one-to-one basis with it, without doing it kind of full on. So yes, so that's where I'm at. I'm happy to do the tarot online as well.
It's so interesting you talking about what I consider the healing pod. And as you know, my work is all about the 3D grid matrix, and everything you're describing is that, like the threading, the weaving, the threading, the lines of light in the capsule, which I call the healing pod. And
wow.
Yeah, so we get to compare notes, man. I'm like so excited that you're actually getting, we've never talked about this before. Yeah, in your own time and space, you're receiving, you're seeing, as you're calling it, this technology, which is what ultimately learning the grid matrix is you learn that it's a mental technology. We learn how to master the mind, master the grid matrix, master the matrix of collective consciousness, how we're interfacing with it, ultimately to master the matrix so that we can bridge heaven on earth, so that we can be outside of the stories that we've been told we are, and really come into a unity of oneness of who we truly are in the light of spirit, in the light of the heart, in the light of love, and bridge that and bring that down. And that's what 4D Trinity and everything that I share and fourth dimensional consciousness is all about. So it's so exciting to me that you, my dear friend, all the way across the world are just by way of nature, by the way of the work that you do, getting these downloads of this technology as well. This like what is it even called?
I have no idea.
I guess I'm trying to think of like a term, and maybe it'll come later, because it is tech. Isn't it interesting how it's like a tech, but it's like an energy tech? You know, it is a
yes,
metaphysical tech.
Yeah, it's metaphysical technology. That's absolutely it. And that's what it came across to me as. And I knew that this particular guide had come to train me in this. So I'm very excited to see what I'm going to learn with it and how it's going to impact my healing practice going forward, because it's another technique to use. And I also found fascinating was another thing that I tried was, while I had my friend in one of them, I put somebody else who was desperately in need of healing, who was actually on her deathbed, into another one of these, and I put another person into another one of these, and I realized they were all working at the same time, you know. And also when I went back to the first guy, when I went to, there were different parts of his body that I was drawn to work on. And another thing that I saw was, at one point towards the end, I was able to lift my hand up, and there were threads connected to each of the different organs and the throat and different places that I had been working on. And there was some power source coming in through the hand and out to each one of these threads. So I didn't have to go individually to each one. It was all going simultaneously to each one of them from this one source. And that fascinated me, because I haven't seen that so vividly before either. So that was very, very fascinating. So I'm excited about working with it.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, there's the grid, there's the matrix, there's the lines of energy as it extends from us as our consciousness. And really what it is, I feel, when we create the correct conditions for that sacred space and for the highest healing to take place with those participants we're exchanging with, is that's just love. That's just the frequency, like Reiki or Chi or Prana, life force energy channeling through, creating the correct conditions for the healing. Because we both know as healers that it's not about us trying to fix someone or trying to have a certain outcome or being attached to anything. We're just holding space for the highest good and, creating the correct conditions as we're guided in whatever ways during that. And so in light of that, I remember the first time that happened to me, and I have a painting of a hand with the light coming out of the fingers, because I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. This is such a trip, so I'll have to take a snapshot and mail that to you. It's it is so profound and it's so juicy and cool when we really step in with the sincerity, because there's no end to the gifts, right? And the tool set that Spirit will just reveal to us. And like we were saying earlier, it seems like, there is this is what I learned with my teacher as well, who dispensed so many metaphysical energy tools. And over the years then of using them, there's so many similar people walking with similar downloads or with similar, tools at use. And there is this divine middle path, it seems, where we've agreed on some higher level for these tools to work for the highest good of all. And when we get into a certain frequency of this work, it's almost like, now here's the tools. We're going to, you got this guide with the healing bug, with the capsule, who's going to hold space for you to get your know-abouts around it and start working with it deeper. And so many things, it's like there's aspects in common that we all begin to plug into this common this set of tools, you know, and it's so exciting because it's just sprouting up, and we're not even telling each other about these things necessarily, but you're having an experience, I'm having an experience, this person's having, and then it's like, oh yeah, it's on. We're lighting up. We are lighting up.
It's incredible. It really is incredible. It's just so nice to share something and to hear that you've had the same experience, you know, and this is something we've never shared. Well, obviously it only happened to me 2 weeks ago, so I hadn't shared it with anybody. So it is wonderful. And it's really validating as well, you know, and it also gives me something that I can go to and look at and go, oh yes, that's exactly what I saw, you know, and know a little bit more about it than I already know at this moment. Yeah, absolutely. And so we have about 5 minutes left. So I'm just warning us, giving us a heads up. And again, just if people are interested to receive services with you, a tarot reading, a long distance healing, they can DM you through your direct messaging. You're also on Facebook as Deep Connections, correct? Deep Connections, yeah, okay. Deep Connection. And just to explain, when I do distance healing, you're there with me. So I open up a video link with the person who I'm working with, and I'm with you for that hour. So I open up the space. I do exactly what I do if I'm doing hands-on healing here, as if I was doing hands-on healing here. Check in, work with your energy, and give you feedback afterwards on what I have picked up and on what has been worked on during the healing session. And then anything that you've experienced as well, we can discuss that and then decide where you're going to go next with it. Yeah.
How beautiful. How powerful. You know, it's so interesting because I do Akashik clearing or Akashic record read clearing work with people, and I like, unless it's a session where they're in the room, then of course you're facing each other and the person is there. But I specifically, and even often for the tarot, I will only do it audio. I feel like I get so much more for me personally when I don't see them. But that's not necessarily for the healing. That's for whatever that work is that I'm going to do with them, specific to going into those different dimensions. And it's just so beautiful because there's so many ways to do it, and we're all guided in different ways, you know, in what's of service. And there's the knowing that as long as we're listening to spirit, listening to love, and following that divine guidance, it's going to be perfect, whatever it is, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I do like to connect in energetically. I like to really connect in energetically with the person I'm working with, and whether that be on video or face-to-face here. And I have found that it's just the same on video. It's exactly the same. I mean, it's just wonderful because we know that energy has no parameters, you know, it has no limits, it can go anywhere, but it is wonderful to see all this stuff so readily available online, and that you can tap into it so easily, you know, you can find somebody so easily nowadays. So I would encourage people to try it and see how you feel with it and see what your experience is. It's quite proactive. I'm quite proactive as a healer. It's not really just channeling energy. There's a lot of conversation afterwards and consultation beforehand. So if you're interested, drop me a line. See how we go.
Contact Aoibhinn. And because you have all these different layers that are going to work with you when you're working with someone. So you have the background in shamanism, you have the Reiki flowing, you have all this other training that you've done, you have the mediumship, and you have your sincere intention to be of service and to do things impeccably. That's one thing I know and I love. I mean, I love you all the way, forever and ever anyway, but one thing I really, really honor and appreciate is your attention to impeccability and to really being hygienically sanitary and clean and mindful about creating sacred space, maintaining it, and doing things in the correct way, you know, that is in alignment with the highest of the highest. And I take my hat off to you, and I thank you for holding that so firm for everyone else. Very powerful.
Thank you. That's really, really beautiful. thing to say, Tuesday. It's lovely to receive that. I'm very touched by that and honoured. Thank you very much.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you very much. You know, because like you were saying earlier, and I know this is going to start, and we're going to be cut off here in a while, and this is our second round. So thank you, everyone, for hopping on. Blessings, King Austin. Nice to see you here.
Thanks, everyone.
And Will and everyone who came back for round 2. There's round 1 is already here. My dear friend for over 30 years, Aoibhinn Murray, blessed healer, amongst just so many other things, and a good person, and lots of fun to hang out with too. Dear friend of mine, I'm so grateful to spend this time with you. And but it is just so interesting that idea you were saying about the piggybacking in doing the mediumship work, when instead of, you know, that there's different ways to channel that, like your own power versus piggybacking on to someone else's network, as it were. And it's just so, you know, that's, maybe someone might accidentally start like that, but I think if you have that sincere apprenticeship to your modality, you will soon learn that that's not the way to continue. If you wanted to share any last words on that, or anything you have, about 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Well, absolutely. And there are some wonderful mediums out there who are doing it for, in my opinion, the right reasons, and they're very authentic and they're real. And there are other people who are out there who think they're doing the right thing. In fact, I've seen mediums at shows who are purely reading psychically a person, but they're saying, your Auntie Mabel is telling me that you want to buy this particular car, or your Auntie Mabel is telling me this. And I'm thinking, you're going to have to meet these spirits when you cross over. You're going to have to answer to these people that you're saying are telling you this. You're reading this person's aura. You know, you're not getting this from spirit at all. You know, so be mindful of that when you're working with a medium or with a reader, you know, or you're going to a mediumship demonstration. Don't let them take it the easy way and just read you.